the last panel for the evening. Can I request you to please take your seats, please? Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
Welcome back, everyone. Uh, we will now start with our third panel. Our final and perhaps most significant panel discussion, Dosco Impact on Society and the Aristocracy of Service. If there's one phrase that defines the Doon School ethos, it's the aristocracy of service. Not an aristocracy of birth or wealth, but one of character, commitment, and contribution to society. For 9 decades, Doscos have embodied this principle, serving in the highest offices of government, defending our nation's borders, leading social movements, and working tirelessly to uplift the marginalized. Today, as we face complex global challenges, from climate change to inequality, the question is not whether Dosco should serve, but how we can channel our privilege, education, and networks towards creating a more just and sustainable world. Our moderator for this panel is Mr. Abhinav Kumar. Our moderator for this panel is Mr. Abhinav Kumar. He's 285 Tata House, batch of 1991. Mr. Kumar is a distinguished IPS officer who exemplifies the aristocracy of service. Currently serving as Additional Director General of Uttarakhand Police, his remarkable journey began at Oxford University, where he earned his MA in Philosophy and Economics from Mansfield College. A former journalist before joining the IPS, he brings a unique perspective shaped by both media experience and 3 decades of distinguished public service across various challenging assignments. Let me introduce our panelists for today as well. There are 4 of them. The first, Lieutenant General Vipul Shinghal, 305 Jaipur House, batch of 1985. Sir is a second-generation army officer who has commanded an independent armored brigade, an armored division, and one of the Army's elite strike corps in the desert sector. Currently serving as Deputy Chief of Integrated Defense Staff, he has served on the line of control and in high altitude areas in crucial staff appointments. Recognized with the Ati Vishisht Seva Medal for Distinguished Service of Exceptional Order and Sena Medal for Exceptional Devotion to Duty, he embodies how military leadership transcends the battlefield to shape institutional transformation and national security strategy. Our second panelist for today is Mr. Amitav Virmani, 260 Jaipur House, batch of 1991. He is founder and CEO of the Education Alliance, a non-profit organization transforming government school education across Tamil Nadu, Madhya Pradesh, Punjab, and Delhi. Before founding the TEA, he served as country director of ARK India, leading initiatives in foundational literacy, teacher development, and public-private partnerships. His transition from corporate success to grassroots education exemplifies how Doscos can leverage their skills for societal transformation. Our third panelist for today is Mr. Ashvin Dayal, who will be joining us virtually. He's 497 Jaipur House, batch of 1987. He serves as Senior Vice President at the Rockefeller Foundation, where he leads the Global Power and Climate portfolio. He spearheaded the creation of the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, a multi-billion-dollar effort supporting renewable energy transitions in 80-plus energy-poor nations. With a master's degree from the School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins, his 15-year tenure with Oxfam included leading the largest ever relief effort after the 2004 Asian tsunami. His journey from Chandbagh to global humanitarian leadership demonstrates the international reach of Dosco service. Our fourth panelist is Mr. Rajit Punhani, 321 Jaipur House, batch of 1985. He is a 1991 batch IS officer of the Bihar cadre, who currently serves as CEO of FSSAI, Food Safety and Standards Authority of India, bringing over 3 decades of distinguished administrative service. From serving as district magistrate in tribal-dominated areas to heading crucial ministries, his career spans grassroots implementation to national policy making. His extensive interactions with beneficiaries of government schemes provide him with a unique perspective on how public service can drive meaningful change. So, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for 4 exemplars of aristocracy of service, from defending our nation to transforming education. May I please request all the panelists and the moderator to come on stage so that we can get started.
Phones off.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I want to start with just reading out to you the original quote by Arthur Foote. That is the topic of our, just to refresh the memories of all the distinguished audience. And I'm grateful to Mr. Dayal Srivastava for just sharing it with me. And I think it's a good place to start. Truly, we mean that the boys should leave the Doon School as members of an aristocracy, but it must be an aristocracy of service, inspired by the ideals of unselfishness, not one of privilege, wealth, or position. Now, to my mind, that's a very, very lofty ideal that was, placed at the very inception of the Doon School by our first headmaster. And, when you reflect on it, it creates a tremendous, I would say, contradiction, sir. That because to my mind, there has been no aristocracy in the entire history of mankind which has been devoted to selfless service. So at the very outset of the, what Arthur, this is my personal view, that what Arthur Foote set forth for us an ideal is something which is truly unique and perhaps never before anyone has attempted it in history. Because aristocracies, by definition, have been self-serving. I think most of us, especially those with a background in history, would agree to that. But having said that, I can say that the Doon School has had a remarkable impact on public service in independent India. We've had a Prime Minister, we've had distinguished Union Cabinet Ministers, we've had Chief Ministers, we've had civil servants. I remember in 1985 when I joined the Doon School, it was our Golden Jubilee year, and General Bilimoria had come, he was there for one of the functions. And I remember him being introduced, that it was at that time it was a proud boast of the Doon School, sir, that at any given time at least one army commander was from the Doon School. So that is the kind of, despite this contradiction, despite this, impossibility of this ideal, over generations we have tried to do a pretty good job of, in different fields, social service. We've had some of the finest people in social service, Bankar Roy, my own dear batchmate and friend, Mr. Amitav Virmani, he's doing some outstanding work in the field of education. And I was just telling him earlier that, the Doon School is an island of excellence floating in a sea of muck, which passes for education in our country. I mean, Amitav, I'm sorry to use these harsh words, but perhaps you would agree. Absolutely. So given this, what we are trying to do, this thing, I would also like to set, hearing the previous discussions, a context for our discussion. One is, of course, the challenge of climate change, which is a global challenge. How does our aristocracy of service go towards meeting this challenge? The challenge of course, the entire, not just AI, but the entire change in our culture, in our society that has been brought about by social media, by cybercrime, cyberbullying, and of course now AI. And the third, I would say, is again the crisis of education itself. How do we are, on one hand, I was listening to the first discussion on capital flows. Raghav, again, a batchmate and a dear friend, was talking about how AI and all these advances in technology have made capital flows more efficient. And more efficient has always meant less jobs and more production. So my simple concern there, as somebody who's involved in public order, in social stability, that if you're going to achieve these kind of efficiencies and that squeeze out jobs altogether, where are you going to find the consumers from? And what does that do to social stability? And are we, like I was talking to Rajit sir earlier, are we going to move to a system where, for the vast majority of our population, handouts of one form or the other, or subsidies of some form or the other, are going to be the only form of survival for them? And while some of us in the elite will have permanent secure jobs, and how does that affect our ideal of service, and especially the aristocracy of service? So, Amitav, I'm told Ashvin sir would like to respond to these concerns of mine, because I'm told you have a deadline.
Oh, I don't know. Here's a deadline.
Can you hear me all right? Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Hi. Well, listen, it's great to be with you, and sorry I'm not there in person. Thank you for that great question, Abhinav. I mean, I was thinking about this panel over the last few days as I was traveling back here to New York. I was thinking about what is it about, this term, the aristocracy of service, and what Doon sort of inculcated in me and in so many others. And by the way, this sounds like a Jaipur House panel. It's almost a clean sweep. But
It's all Jaipur.
One Tata House boy is enough.
But, I was thinking about three things. One is equity, right? I think, even though it's this very elite institution, it felt from day one that you were really put in, there was a sort of school as a leveler, where your background, your wealth status, your, whatever your sort of identity, you sort of left it at the gate, and didn't really appreciate that till probably several years into the experience, but just how important that was in terms of what it did in terms of mindset shifts. The second was environment, and I mean the physical environment, where we are, where the school is. When I was in school in the 80s, there was a lot of concerns around what was happening with deforestation, and all sorts of other things going on in the Doon Valley and in the hills above us in Missouri. And we had some incredible teachers, who used the landscape as the kind of school, as the place of education. I remember very clearly my housemaster, Charlie Kandhari, talking about this incredible valley that we were in, and it sort of really stayed with me. And then the third was around people and society, and really just having a respect for what was going on around you, whether it was through your interactions, in midterms, whether it was through even the outings at the weekend, just understanding the people around you and how much sort of privilege there was in these sort of, in the boundaries of the school, but the reality of everything around us. And so, I sort of take all of that as the sort of foundation for all of the things that many of us do in school. And even if you're working in business, it's not about people who sort of specifically dedicated their lives to, like I work in the nonprofit sector, or Tav works on education, and so on and so forth. People working in industry, in the private sector, all bring that same mindset to what they're trying to do. And I think that's what's sort of very differentiated about that whole Doon School experience. Now, you raised a couple of issues on climate, et cetera, and we can get into it. I've spent the last 30 years working on everything from disaster relief to post-conflict reconstruction, poverty alleviation, economic development in India, in Asia, across Asia, in the Middle East, in Africa. I spent a lot of time there now. Just came back from Zambia a few weeks ago. And I've now dedicated the final chapter of my sort of career on a kind of a weirdly sort of engineering-oriented subject, and that is of power and electrification. And if we think about, what that unlocks for people, whether it's in a rural clinic in Bihar or a village in Zambia or a farm in Rajasthan, it is really the sort of future both of tackling the jobs crisis and the climate crisis. And what's really exciting is just thinking about the technological revolution we're sitting in right now. Solar capacity has doubled every 3 years for the last 3 decades. Battery storage deployment has doubled each year for the last 5 years. EV sales are going through the roof. So we're kind of on a cusp. I don't consider myself sort of a techno-optimist, but we are sort of on the cusp of a pretty significant revolution in terms of, that almost sort of mirrors the digital revolution of the 90s or even the industrial revolution. So I think when we talk about jobs, climate change, and society, working on the issue of clean energy sort of feels to me the way to connect all of these things. And that's sort of why I'm so sort of heavily invested in that, even though I'm not even trained as an engineer. I'm a sort of lowly economist trying to think about how do you use electrons to actually unleash new opportunities for society, whether it's in India or anywhere else in the world.
Thank you, sir. Amitav, I'd like to start with you. I want to ask specifically, how have your experiences in school shaped your approach to your chosen field of public service? And taking it from there, what kind of interventions you would like to see in your chosen field? And especially, what kind of support would you seek from the wider Dosco community to bring about those changes?
Thank you, Abhinav. And Toi, thank you for the observation that aristocracy of service starts and ends in Jaipur House. Quite evident. So I fell into the social sector in 2008. I don't think I chose the sector. I think the sector chose me. I lost my father to cancer in 2008, also next Dosco. At the point in my life, I was at a crossroads. Continue doing what I was doing, which was working in pharmaceuticals in the US, or do something else. And the sector chanced upon me. I fell into it. 6 years, I ran a UK-based nonprofit, and then 11 years ago, I set up my own organization called the Education Alliance. I think what I've learned in the last 17 years has not only been an eye-opener, and Mr. Kant earlier spoke about the importance of data. I was going to actually pose a lot of data to him, and then a very difficult question, but sadly he left. But I'll say it nevertheless. And when I got into the sector 17 years ago, I did not know any of these statistics. So I'm going to quote a few. There's 1.5 million schools in India. 900,000 of those schools are run by the government. 600,000 are run by private organizations, and trusts, NGOs. We educate 250 million children in the 1.5 million schools. We have 9 million teachers, right? Can you take a guess how many schools China may have in comparison? It's the only country which can compare to India in terms of size. We've got 1.5 million to educate 250 million. Can you take a guess how many schools China has? 3 times the amount? It has 1/5 the amount of schools India has. So it has 300,000 schools to educate 260 million kids. UP alone, Uttar Pradesh alone, has more schools in the entire United States. Punjab alone has more schools in the entire United Kingdom. So it's a very, very complicated landscape, right? But the sad reality is, and there was a study done in 2005 called the Annual Status of Education. They published a report for the first time. It was conducted in 700 districts of our country. Close to 6 lakh children were tested. It's called ASAR, on basic foundational literacy and numeracy, which basically means kya ye bachcha Hindi, English, ya Ganit kar sakta hai till a grade level. And they're tested till grade 5. So grade 1 to grade 5. What percentage of children do you think in India, in grade 5, can read a grade 2 text? Which means, a grade 2 text is, my name is Amitav Virmani. Mera naam Amitav Virmani hai. Grade 5, 10-year-old. What percentage of 10-year-olds in India can read this sentence? 50%. So 50% of children in grade 5 cannot read a grade 2 text. That's the reality. Right? And that's what we're up against. 9 lakh crores of government funding goes into education every single year. 9 lakh crores. It's a concurrent subject, so it's contribution from the center as well as the state. 85% of that 9 lakh crores goes towards one line item on the budget. Teacher salaries. So 85% of 9 lakh crores gets spent on teacher salaries. But teachers cannot be held accountable. In fact, the last thing you ask a teacher when you go into a government school is, kya bacche padh rahe hain? You actually don't even ask that question. You invariably ask, midday meal aa gayi, uniform aa gaye, kitabein pahunch gayi, aaj kitne bacche aaye? Aapne register bhar diya? 40% of the time a government teacher spends on administrative responsibilities. And the sad reality is, of the 9 lakh government schools in our country, 3 lakh, and this is what hit me, 3 lakh of those 9 lakh schools are single teacher schools. The entire school has one teacher in them. So when I came into this sector 17 years ago, I came from the doomed school to the doomed schools, right? And that's what I'm fighting against. That's what I'm trying to do. And just lastly, Abhinav, what I want to say, and this is the data I wanted to pose to Mr. Kant, because the sad reality is that the government has done nothing about it. I happen to be working in Tamil Nadu for the last 7 years, and the commissioner, fabulous commissioner, senior secretary, I'm sure you may know him, Mr. Nand Kumar. And I asked him, Mr. Nand Kumar, he spent 2 years fighting the muck, as Abhinav said, of the system. He said, I'm going to clean out teacher unions. I'm going to fix the schools. I'm going to fix infrastructure. I'm going to hold teachers accountable. And he put a 15-point agenda in place, and he was ready to put into action. And the next day, he got transferred. So I went to him with my whole team, and we were in tears. We said, here we were ready to support you on this mission to improve the education in Tamil Nadu, and you've been transferred. He said, just remember one thing for the rest of your working life in this sector. We government servants are temporary. You, civil society, are permanent. So if you want to see change, you are the ones who are going to have to stick it out while we come and go. And 6 years later, we're still there. He's gone. He's a friend. He's a confidant. He's an advisor. But he's no longer there. He was sent off to some Saidi ministry because he was trying to bring about change. So what I've been trying to do for the last 17 years is actually try and raise awareness, because I think most of you didn't know these numbers, is to raise awareness of the apathy of education in our country, the sad reality that despite 9 lakh crores being spent, not a rupee actually goes to where it should, or not a rupee, but less than 9 lakh crores goes to where it should be, and we just go on about our business. So the comments I get when I talk, I'm from the Doon school, it's actually so hard-hitting. It's a compliment while the rudest insult when I go to government offices. And in fact, the chief minister of a very large state who happens to be an ex-Dosco said this to me when I said I work in the social sector. He said, you're very unlike Doscos, right? And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, because not enough of us are doing social service. Not enough of us are in the sector trying to solve big social problems. So I'll just pause there.
Right. Coming next to... Thanks, Amitav. Coming next to General Shinghal, both him and I belong to related professions that are paid to be paranoid about both the external and internal security of this country. I mean, I think it's safe to say that, because since independence, we have inhabited a very hostile neighborhood, to put it mildly, and face non-stop challenges of internal security and social stability. And General Shinghal, in his own career, I myself, in a more limited way, have faced some of these challenges head-on. So again, I'll ask the same question that I asked Amitav. sir, how did your experiences in school shape your approach to your career in the armed forces?
Yeah, so I'll, thank you so much.
Sir.
Thank you firstly for inviting me, and pretty, daunting to be here. Senior officers like us in the army normally get an audience which is junior to us and have no choice but to clap and clap and all. So that makes it daunting straight away. But having said that, I think, when I joined the National Defence Academy from Doon School, I was quite apprehensive because, one was going to a totally different kind of environment. But the moment I got to NDA, I realized it was just a bigger and tougher school with the same kind of, format and norms. In fact, a lot of people have spoken about public school traditions and processes having been taken from the English public school. Actually, a lot of them have been inherited from the armed forces. Chota Hazari, lights out, roll call. These are all very armed forces aspects. So it was quite easy in that way. The second aspect I think that helped me, what Doon brought, was of course a love for the outdoors, the fact that you could have a number of hobbies, reading, theatre, which enriches your life as you go along. And another, I think, very important aspect, somebody spoke about it, I think Mr. Arun Kapoor, about the fact that the boarding school has this huge diversity in its population, both in the faculty as well as the students, which I think is exactly what the armed forces also have. And I found that in NDA. There were people from all sorts of backgrounds, and you and the first thing when I entered the NDA, there was a big quote there saying that we may have arrived on different ships, but we are in the same boat now. And I think that was very true. And I think another thing that, give a small story, how Doon School shaped my understanding of how we have to include everybody as we go along. And especially true in the armed forces because we have people from different backgrounds. We talked about Hindi speaking, this, that, and the other. And we have to all, function together, different religions, different backgrounds. When I was in the Doon School, my father was a lieutenant colonel. And he put me in school. It was very difficult for him to afford me there. But all the same, he sent me to school. And when I was in C form, I think, the Doon School decided to raise the fees by about 30%. Because probably they had not raised it for a long time. The board couldn't meet those days technology and movement and all that. And they raised it by about 30%. Now, my dad had not catered for this. So he wrote a letter, and this was told to me much later, after I left school. He wrote a letter to the headmaster, Mr. Gulab Ramchandani, and like a good, maverick colonel, he wrote just 7-8 lines. And he said, I expected the Doon School fees to increase by 5-6% per year, so I had catered for it. Because my salary also increases that much only. So this is my salary slip and this is the Doon School fees, which doesn't match up. So please, I'd like you to tell my son as to why he has to leave school. I can't tell him. But it's your onus, you raise the fees. Gulab Ramchandani promptly, God bless his soul, put the same letter and sent it to the chairman of the board of governors saying, I will not tell him, you raise the fees. I told you guys not to do it. But that's not the story. The story is the chairman wrote back to him that Vipul Shinghal will stay in the school at the same fees till SC form.
Wow.
So I stayed on in school at the same fees. And this was told to me much, much later by Mr. Ramchandani. About 8-10 years after I left school, I met him somewhere in Founders Day. And I could also send my son to school and even my daughter who's sitting here to Vellum Girls, both of them together at expensive school because I was completely supported by both the SOBS and the school. That is, of course, a financial part. But overall, the aspect of inclusion, I think, has helped me through my career. And about service, very much, I think, SUPW we spoke about, and those things gave you a sense of purpose. And even the NDA motto says service before self. So I think all these aspects, I think, have helped me in my career to grow. As far as security is concerned, all those, of course, are aspects which, one has, tackled along the way. I'll not take more time.
Sir, okay. When I joined the bureaucracy, sir, and I'm sure you would have heard a different variant of the story, that हमारी bureaucracy में भी एक वर्ण व्यवस्था है, जिसमें the Indian Administrative Service are the Brahmins. We in the police and the armed forces are the Kshatriyas. The Indian Revenue Service, of course, are the Banyas, and the rest of them are Shudras. But jokes apart, I think as you grow into your service, you realize that much as we like to malign them, both from the political side as well as from the other services and our civil society at large, a lot of what modern India has achieved would not have been possible without some of the most outstanding public servants that have served in the Indian administrative service. And I'm delighted to have sitting next to me a senior and a very esteemed senior colleague from the Indian administrative service. So, sir, first of all, again, the same question that I asked the two other panelists, how has your experience in school shaped your approach to your service, especially in light of, you joined at the time of liberalization. 91 was the year we first liberalized our economy. And so you've seen the entire trajectory of our economic and growth and cultural changes, societal changes. And how would you like to reflect on that?
So I'll start when I joined the IAS, I got Bihar card, not by choice, but it used to be a lottery system. So my first posting was in a place called Nagacha. So I'll differ from you on that aristocracy of service. I think definitely the Doon School has managed to cultivate this value of aristocracy of service. So when I joined in Nagacha in a subdivision, so Chief Minister had visited and then he had left, and I was in a gathering over dinner with many senior officers, much senior too. I just joined. So, and they said a very strange thing, which I found very strange at that time, that, they were talking about one officer who had just retired. And they were saying that, he worked without any agenda or without any, he worked as if it was a normal thing to do. And, in school, I think when we were there also, when I was there, maybe I didn't realize it at that time, but many things you do, whether you're in audiovisual, whether you're house hockey captain, whether you're the common room in charge, or you do a lot of, in the tuck shop, you do a lot of service in the dining hall, which you do service for the community without realizing that you're doing a service to the community. You do it because that's what you're supposed to do. And that's what everyone else is doing. So I definitely think that, Foot has managed, that vision that he had. And that's why I find, even now I keep on telling a lot of youngsters that school, the Doon School had a lot of service embedded in you. And that is something which, it carries you on throughout your career. Because you work not because, you're looking for something. You work because that is what you're meant to do. You're meant to serve if you're part of the service. And it's not only people in, the civil service as, in the army, or so you're working in social sector, Ashvin is working in his foundation. People are working in their corporate sector, people have their own businesses. So, it's a service which everyone is doing. And if you do it with a little bit of passion and a little bit of selflessness, which I think school manages to inculcate that, I think that brings a lot of satisfaction and a lot of satisfaction in what you're doing. That's what I would like to say. So aristocracy of service, I would like to differ.
Like I said, sir, it's a very unique and I would say a difficult idea. And like I said, so far we have managed to. There have been many successful examples in our generation and the generations before of outstanding public service. But going forth, you see now, especially in the recent generations of Doscos, we hardly get any Doscos coming to the top Indian colleges like St. Stephen's or anywhere else in the country. I find, like my son passed out of school in 2021, and probably 80 or 90% of his batch went abroad. So this is another question I would like to pose to all our panelists, including Ashvin sir. how does the Doon School
Yeah, very right.
remain true? I mean, are we going to be an aristocracy of service to the world at large? I mean, if that, because I see that change happening. I mean, I'm not saying it is necessarily a bad thing, but earlier where the bulk of Doscos went to the top Indian colleges and universities and then naturally found a place somewhere in India in public service or in the private sector, it's changed.
If I can take that just for 30 seconds, there is that famous Maslow's theory of needs. You first have to have enough to eat, drink, then actualize yourself at some point, search for purpose. So I think it would be unfair to expect that a young Dosco who just joins the work stream or goes into college is going to straight away start leading a life of service or get into social service. Like Rajit made the point that everybody is doing service. Many kind people in the audience came to me and said, you're doing great work. We look at you and we feel. I said, no, everybody is doing his service. You guys are paying your taxes, so I'm getting my salary. So firstly, that's there. So in any case, so I think that to say that the purpose in your job, I think you'll be found as you go along. And most of us sitting in the audience today here are who have left our school 25, 30 years ago. So I think that what Rajit was saying, it is imbibed in you that you will provide service in some way, selflessly serve society. If your employees who are there in your company, you will treat them a certain amount of respect, with the point I made earlier. That comes from school, and that is the service you provide. It is not necessary to go into social service or into an NGO or this one to be able to do service. I think we have to sort of look at it in that way. I hope I'm
Agreed, sir.
making some sense here.
Amitav?
I just want to make a point about, I'll be a little bit provocative here. I'm sure some of you may not like what I say. I think, being in the Doon School, if life is a 100-meter race, for the lack of a other distance, being in the Doon School, you have a 50-meter head start. At least we did when we were there. Clearly, you were either somebody or you had done something to be at the Doon School. And I'd like to believe that that's even the case today. What do you do when you have that 50-meter head start is, I think, what we should reflect on. There are two ways to look at this. And 2 days ago, I was sitting with somebody on a panel who spoke about achievement and success. Right? And I think achievement is what all of us have done in life, got awards, made money, we have networks, we know everybody, we're influential. Success is what we have utilized that achievement for. Is it for the benefit of others, or is it for further self-gain? And I think that value starts in school. We were talking about redefining education. We were talking about what is the role of education in an AI future world, in a technology future world. I fundamentally believe, and it's a sad reality, two things haven't changed in the last 200 years. Jails and schools. It's a fact. A lot of us across generations, maybe 3 or 4 decades sitting, more than 4 decades sitting here, will talk about the same subject, the same pedagogy, the same timetable that we had 70 years ago. In a world that is so rapidly changing, how can you not change the inputs when the outcomes are going to be so fundamentally different? And since we're talking about Aristotle, that's a different topic on curriculum altogether, and what you should be teaching and how you should be teaching and the role of education. In fact, Arun Kapoor, my favorite teacher, sitting here, because he said the most important thing to me in school. He said, don't let school get in the way of your education. And it's a fact. I think today's school gets in the way of our education. Right? Because we have to pass exams, we have to cram papers, we have to memorize subjects, and we have to do things that we're told to do because it's prescriptive, but most of us don't want to do that. But we do it till we retaliate or we realize, arey yaar, what a waste. Let's do something else. So I think the point I'm trying to make is, can we inculcate that value of service from a very young age? Aristocracy of service is not an activity. It's a way of life. It's like brushing your teeth every morning. it's knowing that there are people who are lesser privileged than I am, who are at the 0-meter line of this race that I'm running. I've got a 50-meter head start. I can choose to ignore them and keep running, or I can turn back and wave them on. I think that for me is aristocracy of service, which needs to be inculcated in the Dosco.
Ashwin sir, would you like to add to what Amitav has said?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good way of putting it, and the 50-meter head start is a great analogy. The point you were making about kids who are graduating from Doon today are all heading overseas, and is that a good thing or a bad thing? I don't really know. I think it's a natural evolution of the world we're in. In my batch, 87, very few, a reasonable number went overseas, but not that many. It was a minority. Many came back. I did. I went to the UK, came back to India, and then worked there right through the 90s. And so I think part of it is what do you do with your education. I'm sort of optimistic. I work with a lot of young people now who don't see themselves as being in a particular sector. They don't see themselves as being in the social sector. They are doing really interesting startups, trying to solve problems with using the private sector. And I think that's an opportunity that didn't feel very real 20, 25 years ago, that, whether you call it a social enterprise or just an enterprise, or whatever it might be, whether it's on climate change, energy technology, education, health, there's so much innovation happening. And frankly, it's, the people sitting in the audience who I can't see, although you can see me, working in industry, in controlling vast amounts of capital, that really is where I think the future lies in terms of trying to solve some of the big problems that the country faces. And so, to me, it does come back to what Tav was saying, is it comes back to, can you build a foundation of values and a mindset through the experience of going to a school like Doon, which is this kind of privileged bubble, but at the same time an incredibly fertile kind of landscape to be able to learn and sort of play on and sort of grow as an individual. And if you can apply that in any sector, really, I think the concept of service is, the lines are all getting very blurred, and it really is about what you choose to do with it. So I think about some of the great industrial leaders in our country, Ratan Tata, for example, and what the transformation that whole industry, that whole corporate group had. The entire Indian labor code is basically modeled on what the Tata Steel wrote in the early 1900s. I think there's a lot of different ways in which service can be sort of carried through in today's world. And that's a great opportunity for young Doscos who are graduating, in 2025.
Rajit sir?
No, I just want to make a very relevant point you said is why a lot of Doscos, the young Doscos, and a lot of the youngsters, whoever can, or whoever wants to go overseas. Partly, I would say it's partly our fault, and partly due to what Virmani pointed out, is that our systems, I say partly our fault because we may be growing at whatever 8%, 9%, 7%, etc., etc. We have a lot of data, figures, but our systems, we have not been able to address the systems to make the quality of life of a common citizen good enough that he wants to stay in India. Very often it's said that if you want to be in India, either you should have a lot of money or you should have a lot of power. Yeah. So otherwise, to lead a normal life, to get things, the very simple things like getting a license or getting, your interface with government there's a lot to be achieved. And it also stems from the fact that, what Virmani was mentioning, is that you need many more Doon schools. We have very few good schools catering to very few people. The mass majority is still functioning in poor equipped, poor teachers, poor pedagogy, those systems. So I think definitely Doon, and I think this was mentioned in one of the previous things, I think we also have a responsibility, and I think DSABS is doing it in a big way, and the Doon School should, giving Gyan, should preaching, but should should also try and see how can we improve our general educational system and government schools. So numbers, as Virmani pointed out, is not, we don't need so many schools, but whatever we are teaching should be good quality teaching. In the NEP, for example, I'm digressing a bit, in the NEP example, there's something called vocational education, which is supposed to be an integral part of our government education system, because even now most of the people passing out of government schools are not employable in the sense that they have learned something which the industry or the jobs, the industry doesn't want. So vocational education in our school, we did a lot of it. We may not realize, but we had all the vocational education, right, from carpentry to motor mechanics to everything. So how can we adopt or something like that is something that we should think about. And maybe, design a curriculum, as I think Mr. Kapoor had mentioned, and try and go into the government schools and, broad base it. So it's something which I think food for thought is there.
Before now we have a few minutes left, and I'd like to ask the audience.
Yeah.
Please, sir. Can we have a mic here, please, in the front row?
Couple of hands at the back as well.
Sir, it's on.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. My name is Rohit Jha.
Oh, no, he's asking.
You can go
Is
ahead.
it working?
Yeah.
Okay. First thing, thank God we got a Tara House boy on the panel. And I asked one guy, young fellow about 17 years, my junior, I said, why not? And he says, because you either go to Doon School or you go to Tara House. So, thank you. I just think that there is so much that we can do as a group, and I'd like to put it for you gentlemen, because I live overseas, that as I think Amitav said, why can't we, there's a lot of money here, there's a lot of capital here, why can't we adopt schools in the villages and give them computers, give them coaching, get good teachers, support them, and school by school build. And I'm sure we can do it here. The second thing is, as I was talking to Donnie, who's falling asleep, is why can't we support sporting groups? I support 40 sporting teams in Australia. 40. And you know what? The club I play golf in didn't want kids to be playing there. And I said, I'll put money in for them for their coaching. One girl just won the major in France. Grace Kim. The young fellow Declan, I sent him a message, you keep your head down, keep your putts rolling, blah, blah. He sent me a message, he said, hey, Indy, just won the Canadian Amateur. Wow. It depends if we want them, and we can support sporting schools and make Virat Kohli's, and Dhoni can coach them. But we can do that because we have the power. But we have to get to some projects going. And
Sir, please be careful what you wish for. I'll be calling you for your money. I run an NGO and I'm shameless. I'm going to take your number right now.
John Martin told me, he said, Indrajit, we are going to Cheshire Homes. And he said, the problem with us, I said, so how do we get money? And he said, the problem with India is that people would rather give money for an afterlife that's better than the people they live with.
Actually, most of the money in India goes to temples.
That's right.
Goes to religion.
So I picked that up and I said, I will help now. So people said there's a lot of people blind in India who can be cured. So I've done 60,000 already in India. But I know one thing, that the ophthalmologists would rather go to the ashrams where I've set up hospitals in Parmat and Rishikesh and others, but not to other places. They go where the Maharishi will bless them.
Yeah, there was a lady at the back.
So get something going.
My question is to you, Amitav. Working in the social sector myself, I mean, we're talking about government funds, right? And we know that they're not really allocated where they're meant to be. But even the social sector is backed by a lot of CSR money, right? Now, my question to you is that there's a lot of money, like, for example, Pratham, there's a lot of money coming in from the US, there are billions and billions of dollars that are being spent on improving learning outcomes in India. But where do you think the gap lies? Because there is money being spent, and it's compulsory now for corporates, right, through that CSR.
Yeah.
So where do you think the gap really lies? Because are we reinventing the wheel? I mean, there are enough schools, some alarming stats that you just stated.
Yeah.
So where can we bridge this gap, is my question to you.
So I think, Jessica, first and foremost, you can never compare and match government budgets. 9 lakh crores is the education budget in this country, right? 35,000 crores is all that comes, it's a lot of money, but 35,000 crores is all that comes in through CSR. So 35,000 compared to 9 lakh crores just for education. By the way, that 35,000 goes towards livelihoods and health and gender and climate and so on and so forth.
But
so
still
only
a considerable
7,000
amount towards education,
Correct.
yeah?
So 7,000 crores comes towards education, but it's fragmented. When I try to go raise that money, somebody says, मेरी फैक्ट्री तमिलनाडु में है, वहाँ पे 2 स्कूल चला दो. Somebody says, मेरे भोपाल में है, वहाँ पे कुछ बदल करो. It's fragmented, right? So we have to come together. Sadly, we're a democratic country, but we're the least connected as people because there's so many things that divide us that we can't come together to solve a problem. So coming together is step one, like the gentleman here just said. Even if this community just came together and said, let's solve one problem in Uttarakhand, because that's where our beloved school is, I think that would be a great start for us, right? Let's build a fabulous auditorium where we'll do arts and crafts and culture in the city of Dehradun. I don't think it'll take us 20 years for this community to agree. So you can imagine what's happening in India. So it's tough.
But there are plenty of curriculums as well. I don't know if we need more curriculums to be added.
don't.
No, we don't.
You
And
don't.
we have enough schools.
Yeah.
So, you know,
In fact,
is
you've got
it-
too many schools. That's
Yes.
the point I was making. China's got 1/3 the schools we have. We need to shut schools down. Not shut. You need to consolidate schools. You need to have big schools that have plenty of teachers in them. And that's beginning to happen right now. You'll see that in the next 20 years.
Just like to supplement what
my
Amitav
name
said,
is-
because I took a brief sabbatical from my normal duties in the police and had a stint with Dr. Shashi Tharoor in the
MOS.
Ministry of HRD, sir.
That's right.
And it was very interesting because we were looking at different aspects of education. And this is the sad reality that I mean, in my state of Uttarakhand alone, we have some schools which have most teachers than students.
That's right.
That's another
Opposite.
paradoxical
Yep, because it's
sort of
Dehradun.
situation.
Yep.
And there are schools which, I mean, essentially you want to shut down those schools.
But you don't.
But for political reasons, because that school falls in some minister's constituency. So I'm sure you would have faced that problem. So there's a huge problem of rationalizing and getting efficiencies out of your education budget.
But if civil society demands it, it can happen.
Yeah.
सरकार लोगों का बात मानती है, but लोग बोलते नहीं हैं.
The biggest obstacle to reform of the education sector, I would say, probably are teachers.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a very...
Could I just jump in with a quick comment, Abhinav?
My name is Rohit Jha. I'm from the batch of 85, and 2 of my batchmates are there. One top army person in the country, and one the top bureaucrat. And luckily, the moderator is from Tata House. But my question is to Amitav Virmani. And it's related to what Rajit also talked about, the tremendous gap in the educational system between the rural and the urban.
Yes, sir.
Whether it be the boarding schools and the day schools in the metro areas, in the metro cities, in tier 1 cities, tier 2 cities, tier 3 cities, and the rural area. And you also talked about the number of schools.
Yes.
And your experience in Tamil Nadu. Now, moving ahead, my question is, what do you see as the process that we as a country should be following to change that gap in our Indian educational system
So, sir, I think the...
And supplementary to that
Sure.
is that what do you see leading school like ours
Can do.
doing
Sure.
to change that system?
Sure. So, sir, what we have done over the last 100 years is we've repeated the interventions repeatedly. So we've tried to attempt teacher training. We've tried to attempt curriculum reform. We've tried to attempt leadership training. We've tried to attempt assessment reform. Those are all great to do in the Doon School. Because the Doon School is a functional school that has about 100 teachers.
Yeah.
It has about 50 classrooms. It's got 600, 700 students. And it's got all the provisions that you and I imagine when we say a school, right? What today we have evaluated over the last 17 years of work that I've been doing and the last 100 years of work that's happened, Brookings put out a study and said very interestingly, if India keeps doing what it is doing in education today, it will take India 100 years to catch up with the West. That's how far behind we are the West. Proven research. So we have to leapfrog what we do. We have to fundamentally leapfrog like we did in telecom. Right? We did not use a linear pathway
Just to
for
supplement-
telecom adoption. Right?
Yeah,
So just to quickly say, there's the silver bullet. If 9 lakhs, if there are 15 lakh schools in our country and we need only 3 to 4 lakh, let's start creating what we call a minimum viable school. A big mistake we made in the Millennium Development Goals is we took schools to children. तो हर एक किलोमीटर रेडियस में हमने स्कूल बना दिया, but वो एक सिर्फ क्लास है और टीचर नहीं है. We have to take children to schools. That's the difference. So make big schools, resource them well, put teachers in them, put classrooms, good infrastructure, and then ferry children to those schools and educate them well. That's not what we do right now in India.
Just to
That's the starting
supplement
point.
what you said, that just a few days ago I was reading an article somewhere where the Chinese, they have introduced AI and coding at the primary level of education.
Yep.
And here, as Amitav pointed out, a grade 5 student cannot read a grade 2 level text. So this is the gap, and this is the challenge that we face in educating India.
Big gap.
I have a question. Hi, Anil Malhotra. And this is for Ashvin. It's a takeaway from what Amitav said and what the young lady said about funding. Ashwin, you are an international philanthropy, who I guess you have your grantees. So my question is in two parts. The first is, when you give a grant, what is the percentage split between admin and beneficiary? And my second part of the question is, how do you monitor that to ensure the fund flow is for what it's been given?
Thanks for that question. Look, the admin ratio really varies. It depends on what kind of project it is, but the average across our entire portfolio is around, I think it's about 18 to 19%. And I would say, I'm suspicious of a project where the admin is too low, because it relates to your second question, because it does take people who have experience and expertise in whatever the topic is, whether it's on energy where I work or on education, to be able to do that rigorous follow-up, monitoring, evaluation. But the most important thing is selecting the partners. If we're a philanthropy partnering with local NGOs, is the process of actually identifying and selecting the partner, doing that original due diligence on their governance, their values, their organizational capacity, so that you don't then have to behave like you're policing them. You can actually build a real partnership. That's when it works best, is when you have a level of trust, but trust obviously with verification. And so that's generally the philosophy that we adopt when we're trying to build partnerships. I would say we also partner with companies. We partner with NGOs, we partner with governments. In Rajasthan, for example, our biggest partnership is with the state government on trying to get the PM Kusum scheme, the solarizing agriculture scheme, to actually take off there. And, to the point about, just one last point on what Tav was talking about, it really is a software hardware issue in every sector in India. We have a lot of hardware and not enough software. And actually, this is where a summit like this could actually be, I think, quite useful, because we are working in all these different sectors where you have the potential and the relationships and the networks to bring these things together. There's massive amounts of money going into solarizing farmers in Rajasthan, but no movement. What actually was needed was just some very sophisticated digital backbone to be created to help the government sort of track, monitor, and implement the program with more efficiency. So these kind of partnerships with government, I think, are where we can see a lot of unlocks in the next few years, because there is, as Tav said, there's a huge amount of money sitting within the government system, often underutilized. So if we can get that hardware, software sort of connection, interface working more effectively in different sectors, I think we'll go a long way. And I think philanthropic capital can then actually be much more effective if it's actually trying to link to other pools of capital like government funding or private sector funding.
I have a question.
Just one.
So it was actually for the earlier panel, but since Mr. Virmani is here, maybe I can ask this to him. And also remembering Mr. Arun Kapoor and Ms. Bharatram, if they can answer this question. But what I've heard, over the course of the day is, this holistic education that Doon School has provided. It's experiential, there's a sense of service, there's SUPW. But what I think there is no bridge to Delhi University. And I think that's where I would ask Ms. Bharatram to comment a little bit, is that Delhi University does not build in all of this into its admissions criteria. So when our children,
That is true.
when our children are actually dealing with 99.9% entrance cutoff marks, what would be your advice to a child who does not have the means to go abroad, and contribute to the brain drain that this country is facing? In terms of the marginal utility of time, where would you ask this child to spend their time?
Very good question.
Yeah.
Good question.
As late as 2008, 2010, school was still sending, students in double digits to Delhi University.
Yes.
I mean, if my...
But that's...
I'm answering the ladies' questions. Huh?
Yeah.
So, I don't know what happened. So, for us to say, oh, now the cutoffs are so high. See, we were competing with our peers then.
Yeah.
And somehow, I mean, I remember in my generation...
There were
at least-
20 of us who went to
St. Stephen's College.
That's right.
And in my batch also, about 10 of us went to St. Stephen's. I unfortunately did not go to college, but I went to Oxford instead.
That's right.
And I got a lot of ribbing from my batchmates for that.
But that's a relevant point.
Yeah.
So
Why
Delhi
aren't we
University
Sorry.
is...
Sorry, Basvi, go ahead.
Sorry. Delhi University is doing what Delhi University did for the last 50 years. They have not changed anything. And it is purely based on marks. We are running colleges like the Sri Ram College of Commerce, Lady Sri Ram College. If you don't have 99%, there is no point applying. 100%. Now soon it will be 110%. But unfortunately, it is all dictated by the government. The governing bodies of these colleges have literally no say. And I totally hear what you are saying. Many times, students of the Sri Ram school who may not even want to go abroad are almost forced to go abroad because they don't get into the colleges here. I don't know what is the solution. Unfortunately, it is a state university, central university rather, and the government is the only one who can make these interventions. But it is really, really needed.
So I'll just give you one quick anecdote from Mr. Arun Kapoor's. I think he's left, if I'm not mistaken. Is he here? You have to visit that school because it's an eye-opener, right? What he's doing. I visited his school in May of this year in Bhutan. I asked him, before he asked me to go walk around the school to see for myself what he's built, I asked him, what are you trying to do here? He said, I'm trying to create constructive, contributory citizens in a just and harmonious society. That's his mission. I said, how do you do that? That sounds very lofty and fluffy. I go into a classroom, grade 9 students, they're waiting for their teacher to come, so I get into a conversation with these girls, and I said, what is your class on? What's the subject? They said, truth, beauty, and values. I said, that can't be the subject. They said, yeah, that's the subject. Truth, beauty, and values. I said, well, how do you study truth, beauty, and values? And this girl goes into a very eloquent way of saying, when I came into this school, I had a particular idea of how people in society are, what values they possess. And I came in believing everyone is like me, they're nice people. But then I realized through conversation and dialogue that we live in a very diverse world. Point I'm trying to make here is that his school has chosen, now the kids go to engineering colleges all over the world, they get into the best colleges in Delhi University. They have chosen to focus on a curriculum that is more meaningful. My point, their school is not getting in the way of their education.
No, but what she's saying is that why
मिलता है उनको marks.
No, what she's saying is that
रट्टाबाजी से उनको marks मिल जाते हैं.
even despite now you have CUET.
Correct. So you can pass that exam.
Now, I mean, like I think there should be more of a chance now of a Dosco getting to Delhi University than before. But because in our time it wasn't that there wasn't any competition, but we did all these things and we also did our studies. So I don't know.
But to answer your question very briefly, I also say that what I said right in the beginning, that let's not take away the enriching of your life by a holistic education which gives you an enriched life throughout your life. Because you can enjoy a play, you can enjoy a book, you can enjoy a summit like this. That has come from school's education. Maybe that didn't get you into a good college, but that has got great value through your life.
Question. Can I ask one?
Yeah, please.
So firstly, I think it's great that we've ended summit on this topic. And gentlemen, thank you for your inspiring stories. I think they are fantastic. Now, aristocracy of service is a very counterintuitive statement, as you recognized, Abhinav. But I think at a time, as Vasvi said, a reputed institution like that is figuring out how to create an alumni. 85 years back, Arthur Foote had the vision that we create, and we've been thriving for the last 70, 60 years with DSOBS. And I think there's lots more than DSOBS can do. It's highly underexploited. And my question, I'll just put it to Vipul, to you, a message for how we can make this DSOBS stronger as an element of service.
You're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I think definitely, like I said, I owe the fact to DSOBS that they did give a scholarship to my son to go to school, and part of it. So I think in that way, there is some contribution they are doing. But yes, what even Amitav made the point that, and he was to some extent, that I think people are willing to contribute financially if they are sure that the money is going to actually impact people and impact society, which is something close to their heart. Now, I think most foundations, possibly he's better qualified to answer this question, is how do you align this and people part with their time and money without definitely watching as to where the outcome is coming from. There has to be trust in the body that is sort of mobilizing this fund and the time to create impact. And I think people like Ashvin, etc., who are already in the business of mobilizing money and using it correctly, I think they can become consultants to DSOBS to help us do this better. Yeah.
Sandeep, sir.
Okay, just a question. We have 5 exemplar people there. Do we agree to that? 5 exemplar people. They said one thing. Let's look at schools in Uttarakhand. I want one exemplar person from you to say, I raise my hand to ambassador that, rally people and help schools in Uttarakhand become better because of Doon School. Who will do that?
I think all of us will do it.
We'll do it.
I think all of us will do it. Amitav is most qualified.
We want one person to spearhead it.
So I run 4 schools in Thangad in Podi Garhwal, by the way. So I'm already doing it.
How do we do that? My question is still unanswered. Doon School.
That gentleman from Australia, we need him first for his money.
Yeah, so can
That's
we get
step
that
number
going?
1.
He's wasting too much money on golf.
There has to
He's
be
left,
a
by the
close.
way.
There has to be a close to this summit, and I think close should be that we will better schools in Uttarakhand.
Yeah.
Golf subsidies
We should
must
close
go.
on that as a statement.
I mean,
Yes.
I guess so.
I think yes.
Is the question answered? Stand up.
I'm in. I said I'm in.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Rajit Mukherjee. I'm a former 364 batch of 1999 Tata House. I just wanted to comment based on the discussion that was happening before about 99% marks for St. Stephen College. and what you were saying about building an auditorium in Uttarakhand as a sort of social service project, that from my personal experience of school, I wanted to share that aside from the classroom, aside from the marks, aside from all of that, the academic side, for me, the formative experience of school was basically the campus, the art school, the metalworks shop, the carpentry workshop, even I'd say the motor mechanics workshop where the junker was being made all the time, paper recycling, so on and so forth. There was a lot of education that was happening through vocational studies, through things that we're doing with our hands. And today I'm an architect and I run a design firm as a result of that. And I remember when I was in SC form, I took up art and geography as a subject, and our principal, John Mason, thought I was nuts. But it helped me get into the School of Architecture in Ahmedabad because I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And there are a couple of us who were even trying to get into NID and so forth. So it's not only about marks and getting into NID, and, because we live, like you've pointed out, in the time of artificial intelligence, where that random access memory can be done by machines. Learning from textbook is irrelevant right now. I mean, these data sets can be crunched. And especially for a developing country like ours, it's now you're talking about outreach, you're talking about investing into education in the cities, tier 2 cities, towns, villages. I feel that what the Doon School the Doon School alumni could promote is vocational training for our nation's youth. Because that's one thing that AI is not going to be able to take from them, So I just wanted to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I wanted to add two points I want to make. One is that I've seen Doscos, whether they get into a good college or not, they've all done exceptionally well than their peers from other schools. And it's all across all fields. So I think, yes, one should not think only in terms of marks and everything. And vocational education is maybe, when we talk about Uttarakhand, and maybe when we get into this, selecting the schools, we should also ensure that we have all vocational, like we have in school.
Absolutely.
We have those in those schools.
Absolutely.
And we'll pitch in whatever we can.
Yep.
Okay, Junaid, I think, okay. Yeah, first of all, Ashvin sir had to leave us a little, because we ran out of time for him. Thank you very much, Amitav, Vipul sir, Rajit sir, and to the audience as well for responding so well to our discussion with the very pertinent observations and questions. And it's been a pleasure moderating.
Thank you.
Thanks, Abhinav.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much. Yeah. I got the claps in spite of not being junior officers.
And despite Tata House.
One Tata House boy was enough.
Hello. Yeah. Thank you so much to our distinguished panel. Ladies and gentlemen, I request you to stay where you are. Our chief guest is on the way. He'll be here shortly. In the meanwhile, may I call upon Sameer sir to give the token of appreciation to our panelists and moderator. We request your patience for 5 minutes. The chief guest will be here in that much time.